Alright, in this video we'll be looking at the surface area of a cylinder. Now a cylinder is made up of two circles, say one on top, one on the bottom, and this roll in the middle. The two dimensions we'll need are the radius of each of those circular ends, which we'll call r, and the height of the cylinder, which we'll call h. Okay, and so to work out the surface area then, we need to add up the area of each of those three pieces, the two circles and the roll. So first we'll do the circles, so we'll look at the top of the cylinder first. It's a circle, and the area of a circle is always pi times the radius square, so pi r square. That deals with just the top. Then we have the bottom as well, and the area must be the same thing. So now we have two copies of pi r square, and that deals with the bottom. The only thing left is the roll, and to work with that one, we're first going to trace around the top of the roll, and notice that its circumference is 2 pi r. That's the length around the top of the roll if you were to crawl around it. Right. Then we're going to unwrap this roll so that it forms like a rectangle whose height is h, the original height of the cylinder. Right, and so now that is the clearest way to look at the area of that roll, because it's just a rectangle whose area is the length multiplied by the height. And so finally, the surface area will be given by adding those bits. So we have two circles, 2 pi r square, and then we have the rectangle, which is 2 pi r, the length, multiplied by h, the height. So we get that. Okay. Now you're given this formula in a reference sheet normally, so you're given that the surface area is this thing. But what you really need to understand is what each part is doing. So you need to know that the 2 pi r square comes from the two circle ends. You need to know that the 2 pi r h is just the sort of toilet roll bit, but unwrapped. Right, and the reason you need to know this is because you're not always finding the full surface area of a complete cylinder. Right? Sometimes you're only looking for the roll, sometimes there'll be one circle end missing, sometimes who knows what could happen, right? So you need to know what each part is doing, and so sometimes when you apply this, you won't apply all of the parts of the formula to the question you're doing, right? Sometimes you'll cut off bits of it depending on what the situation is. Okay, so I'll show you a question from an exam 10 years ago with this mad low-res picture. And first we'll do the total surface area. Just to show you an example of that, we'll use the whole formula in full and find the total surface area of the entire can. Okay, so the radius of the can will come from looking at that bottom measurement of 10, but 10's all the way across. So the radius is that length, which is only 5 centimeters. The height is given to us as 10 centimeters, and so that's the height of the whole can. Forget those 0.5s for now. And so that gives us a total surface area then. We'll just plug in the values for r and for h. R is 5 and h is 10, and so you'll have this, which we can calculate to be 471.24 square centimeters. Okay, so that's just using the formula, using the value of 5 for r and the value of 10 for the h, right? But sometimes, again, we're not going to use the whole thing, right? So the actual question in the exam, part of it at least, was asking for just the area of the label, right? That label around the outside with the name of the magic beans or whatever. So the area of just the label is a bit different. First, the height is no longer 10 centimeters because the label doesn't take up the whole can. The label only takes up that much height. And if you take away 0.5 from top and from bottom, that's removing 1 entire centimeter, which means the height is now going to be only 9 centimeters. More importantly, because it's just the label, we don't care about the two circle ends. And so for this question, we're actually going to ignore the whole first half of the formula. We're only going to use that 2 pi r h bit because we only have the roll. We don't have the two circle ends. That's not part of the label. Okay, and so we need to know then to only use that part. So we only go 2 pi multiplied by the radius, which is still 5, multiplied by the height, which is 9. And that gives us 282.74. Okay, and so that's why we need to really understand where these formulas come from and to know what's happening with each of the symbols and each of the components, because when we apply it, we can do so properly and not just use everything when we don't need to or when we shouldn't. Okay, and so that's the surface area of a cylinder, and I'll see you guys next time.